After more than an hour of talking on the phone, President Donald J. Trump and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy have concluded what we hope is the beginnings of a real peace process with Russia to end the Ukraine war. Here's what President Trump posted immediately after he hung up with Zelenskyy to his social media. He said, quote, just completed a very good, notice he didn't say perfect, telephone call with President Zelenskyy of Ukraine. It lasted approximately 1 hour. Much of the discussion was based on the call made yesterday with President Putin in order to align both Russia and Ukraine in terms of their requests and needs. We are very much on track. That's a far different, I would say, almost sterile description of the phone call with Ukraine's leader, okay, compared to yesterday's epic phone conversation between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. In the statement that Trump made about his phone call with Zelenskyy, he claimed that the readout would be released hours after the call had ended. That's not typical. That's not normal. Is it at all possible that the phone call with Zelenskyy did not, in fact, go as well as President Trump wants the world to believe it did? Remember, just a day before the phone calls, Zelenskyy was demanding more money from both the U.S. and Europe.
Who will help in funding of our army? And where will Ukraine be in the security guarantees and its economic component of this guarantees? That depends on European Union. The help is Europe. I mean, financial support of the army and the recovery of Ukraine. The whole world wants that, and maybe the whole world will do that, but we rely upon, first and foremost, upon Europe and America.
Okay. And this is all just a couple of weeks after that incredible shouting match between Zelenskyy, President Trump, and Vice President J.D. Vance in the Oval Office.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
So, okay, there's no way that you go from that, what we just saw there, to a positive, friendly phone call. And when we finally did get, some semblance of a readout of the phone call with Zelenskyy, it was only released verbally. It was a read on live television with White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, and only after she was prompted by a reporter in the White House briefing room with a question about how the call went, she didn't even offer it up at the top of the briefing, which is a little bit unusual, okay? So I think we can read a lot into this. This is not how things are typically done, okay? I know. I've been living and breathing this and readouts from the White House for almost a decade. So it's not how things are usually done. That is, unless Zelensky's phone call with Donald Trump, as we believe, was a total disaster. And look, it must have been, because we know that Zelenskyy does not want peace. Not really. And it's because he can't want peace, because Zelensky's not in control. The banner writes, actual Ukrainian Nazis run his government, and they do not want peace with Russia. What they want is to ensnare Donald Trump and NATO into World War III. And that's the absolute truth. Now, we will have more perspective on this tomorrow from both Russian and Ukrainian representatives, along with their own geopolitical analysts, to break this down more in depth for you. So you won't want to miss that. That's the absolute truth. And joining us now from the White House for more on this and more is our White House correspondent, Kara Castronova. Kara, it's good to see you. I was specifically watching the top of the briefing to see if Caroline Leavitt offered a readout from the call with Vladimir Zelenskyy right off the top, because if she didn't, I knew it would mean a lot, and she didn't. So I suspect the call didn't quite go so well. Trump said it went well. Of course, he's going to say that. But I think that we'll probably learn that there was some probably heated moments, and there's some real sticking points there. Were you surprised she didn't immediately provide information on the call with Zelenskyy off the top of the briefing?
I was. I thought that the actual point of the briefing today would be to summarize the call with Zelenskyy and also give more details on yesterday's call with Putin. So yes, I was surprised that she didn't come out and start with that. And she was talking more about the judges. But, like you had mentioned earlier, a reporter actually drew out that statement. So it was an interesting statement. And, I lean towards the fact that maybe Zelenskyy could have been asking for more than, Trump wanted to give. I really can't predict. But yes, I was surprised when she came out and didn't automatically address that call that had just happened only maybe 2 hours before.
Okay, so it had just happened 2 hours before, but here's what I know about covering the White House is that they usually have the readout pretty well ready to go to drop within just a matter of moments. And when that didn't happen, and when Trump put that statement out, he also kind of kicked the can over to the National Security Council, National Security Advisor, Michael Waltz, and said we get something a little bit later. I do suspect that we'll hear a little bit more in the next 24 hours, and we are going to, provide more analysis of that tomorrow. So we'll see, I guess, Kara. We didn't get a ton of information there, but in the lack of information, it's also very telling.
Right. And you know better than anybody else. You were here at the White House, obviously covering just like I am for many years. So, I'll take your word for it. But that I did find that to be unusual. I did come into here expecting to hear some of that, like right off the bat. So what you're saying could have a lot of truth to it.
What she did get asked about as well is something that I've been particularly paying attention to, and that's the activist judges is causing some real problems for the Trump administration. I believe that there's several tactics they could take to overcome these judges. But Caroline was asked about that, correct?
She was. A lot of people had questions about Judge Boasberg specifically, the judge that everybody is talking about right now. And I think a lot of the focus really was on that judge, and maybe because she did come out right away talking about it. But a lot of reporters had questions, and there were a couple interesting answers that she gave regarding these activist judges. If you want to take a listen.
Since you brought up the judges, I would like to point out that the judges in this country are acting erroneously. We have judges who are acting as partisan activists from the bench. They are trying to dictate policy from the President of the United States. They are trying to clearly slow walk this administration's agenda, and it's unacceptable. As the President said last night, we will continue to comply with these court orders. We will continue to fight these battles in courts, but it's incredibly apparent that there is a concerted effort by the far left to judge shop, to pick judges who are clearly acting as partisan activists from the bench in an attempt to derail this president's agenda. We will not allow that to happen. And not only are they usurping the will of the president and the chief executive of our country, but they are undermining the will of the American public, tens of millions of Americans who duly elected this president to implement the policies that are coming out of this White House.
Yeah, not only is it's just not constitutional. So, but the focus is on this Boasberg, and you know him well, correct?
Right. So this is a judge that was horrible during the Biden era, obviously. And in general, this is a judge that really allowed the Department of Justice to be weaponized against the president. And really, the Department of Justice and Merrick Garland only got away with what these judges let them. And the judiciary has just gone unchecked and really there's no accountability with these judges. They're never impeached. There's never investigations. They're never asked any questions. They're not even elected. So I think it's really, relieving that finally, for once, these judges are being obviously paid attention to by the American public. But I really feel like the really low-hanging fruit would be going after the weaponization, like really maybe impeaching them on that, or at least the congressional investigation into the weaponization that we really had hoped would happen with this new Department of Justice as well, even doing an investigation. This judge is the one that actually didn't give Ray Epps any jail time, but gave a 9/11 female first responder who was a New York City decorated policewoman a number of years in prison for literally going into the Capitol and shaking a tambourine, and allowed the FBI to confiscate her rosary beads literally as evidence when they raided her home, and allowed them into evidence. So this is that judge that, again, like I said, gave no jail time to Ray Epps, yet gave this 9/11 first responder, a female, many years in prison. So this is the very same judge that is now doing this with President Trump, acting like an activist from the bench. But really, if you go back on his record over the past 3 years and start exposing that and just how he misapplied the law, I think that they could really get him on that. Also go after him for the things they're going after him now, but for these other things as well, it would be really, like I said, a very easy find into things that he did that might have been illegal.
Now, a lot of people that are seeing what he's doing now probably didn't know the background and that he was the Ray Epps judge, right? That alone just tells you everything you need to know. Look, a lot of this is on Congress, right? They have not begun calling any of these judges in to impeach them or at least make them answer for themselves. Also, there's suggestion out there, Congress has power to be more effective against the DC, court, and they're, not making sure they have jurisdiction over some of these cases. There's a lot that can be done, and that's conversations I think we should have down the road and talk to members of Congress about, like, why aren't you doing this? And I think maybe Donald Trump should start being more vocal against members of Congress, right?
It definitely, and you don't even need to go as far as saying impeach, just a congressional committee into the judge's role in the weaponization, how they let that happen, and put some of these judges on the bench, give them a taste of their own medicine, ask questions, like put them under oath in front of Congress. The judges right now say they're checking and balancing the executive branch, but the Congress has the ability to check and balance the judiciary. So I don't think it would be that hard to put them up there, and ask questions and just make an example that the American public is watching, Congress is watching, the executive branch is going to check and balance when you misapply the law and you allow a rogue regime to weaponize the agencies against the people and against the former president. It would be really easy, in my opinion. If I was in Congress, I certainly would be heading this committee because it's something I feel like has been needed for a very long time now. And like I said, so much would be exposed very quickly. I would assume that these judges would not lie under oath. They know the ramifications of that. And there was just so much stuff that went on in the past 4 years that they were well aware of. And they knew it was wrong. They knew it was wrong what they did. And I think that could be exposed very easily in a congressional hearing. And they don't even have to impeach. It could just be a hearing with an investigation.
Yeah, I don't know. You might be assuming a little too much with these judges, Kara. I'm not sure. I think a few of them would actually lie under oath. I did kind of joke today, welcome to the United States of judicial tyranny this morning. It's one of the biggest problems facing our country right now, and we have to get a hold of that. We got to get a handle on that. Thank you so much, Kara Castronova from the White House. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Emerald.
You, my friend, need Native Path collagen, made with only type 1 and type 3 collagen fibers. These are the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in your body. It's found in cartilage, bones, skin, hair, nails, your gut. Type 1 and 3 provide maximum benefits without the need for unnecessary fillers. Also, Native Path collagen has no additives, no artificial sweeteners. It's also completely flavorless, which is important because Native Path collagen can be added to anything. I put it in my coffee. Also, because of its special peptide formulation, it mixes more easily than any other collagen I've ever tried, and I've tried a lot. But the best part, Native Path offers amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. Plus, they have a 365-day no-risk guarantee, making Native Path the trusted choice. All you have to do is visit getnativepath.com/truth. That's getnativepath.com/truth to start your transformation. I want you to take a good look at this man here. You might recognize his face, maybe you don't, but let me tell you, he was in charge of cybersecurity operations out of the FBI field office in San Francisco during the 2020 presidential election, the most corrupt election in American history. And this man, is the reason for why anyone who mentioned the Hunter Biden laptop scandal was spreading Russian disinformation. Miranda Devine, the New York Post reporter who broke the story about Hunter Biden's laptop from hell and all the incriminating evidence found on it showing Hunter Biden's corruption and the corruption of his father and family, was effectively canceled. And the New York Post censored strenuously by social media companies based on the actual lies spread by this man Elvis Chan using his position in the FBI to cover for Joe Biden. And long after the 2020 election was called for Biden, was it finally admitted by the authorities that the Hunter Biden laptop story was in fact real. Just to be clear, this had real consequences for an already corrupted election because it had been reported that 1 in 6 so-called Biden voters would have voted for Donald Trump had they known about the sordid details of the Hunter Biden laptop. Joining us now is data expert Gleason to break this story down. Chris, you've actually talked a lot about Elvis Chan and his relation to this story. And you know what's amazing to me, Chris? Even though I had a source call me today, didn't know I was doing this story, we are still uncovering corruption from Hunter Biden's laptop. It has yet to be fully reported, and we are 5 years into this story, Chris. Tell us about what you know about Elvis Chan.
Well, Elvis Chan, in his deposition during the Missouri versus Biden lawsuit, made some really, really stunning admissions. And one of those stunning admissions was that their information operation really started much more heavily in 2018. And myself and about 400 and some odd of my friends were the victims of Elvis Chan and his plot with Perkins Coie, the DNC, and Mark Elias. And in the deposition and in his testimony, he essentially said, oh, we were way worse in 2018 in the lead up to the midterm elections than we were during 2020. And so this is a much deeper story than anybody realizes, because it shows how bad operatives within the DOJ, when Trump was in the last time, were working against him from within. And this is a perfect example of that, because people like myself, we were allegedly flagged for being Russian bots and disinformation, and we really weren't. And Facebook, the Center for Internet Security, and all of them, they knew this. Elvis Chan, in particular, knew this, which makes it even more egregious, because what they did is they attacked Americans in our right to free speech, which is a violation of umpteen different laws, to include the Hatch Act and about every constitutional protection that exists.
Just to clarify, so you yourself were labeled as a Russian bot by CIS and I guess by law enforcement, right, essentially, during this whole 2020 election when we're talking about the Hunter Biden laptop. What kind of consequences did that have for you, Chris? Was your account suspended? Was it shadow banned? What happened as a result of that?
So it actually dates back to the weeks before the 2018 midterm election. And what ended up happening was I had a massive presence on social media across everywhere. Me and my friends, we were social media influencers before people knew what a social media influencer was. And what effect this had on our business was the absolute destruction of my business, several businesses, 4 businesses that I had going on. And it was financially devastating to me and to many others.
Here's why we're talking about it today. Okay, because you said, oh, this is water under the bridge. This is 2025, Chris and Emerald. What are you talking about? But as I noted on Twitter, Elvis Chan still has his position at the FBI, correct?
He sure does. And so don't a lot of these other bad actors within the FBI. And President Trump really, with his new crew of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, they need a wholesale purge of all of these bad actors within the FBI. because if they don't, we're going to see the same type of activities. I mean, because this purge on social media at the hands of the Center for Internet Security and the FBI or FBI, this went on in Trump's own FBI and DOJ going back to 2018. These were the same people who were working behind the scenes to subvert everything that he was doing. And that's important, hugely important, especially if we're going to get the accountability that, the overwhelming majority of Americans voted for.
We need to see firings. We have to see firings. We have to see prosecutions after those firings. There have been some good headway made. The FBI, under Cash Patel's direction, has opened up an investigation to Act Blue. This announcement you were instrumental in bringing about, because you did a lot of that research into Act Blue that helped everybody understand what was going on. But my concern, and kudos on that, by the way, congratulations, thank you for the work that you did. I'm not sure enough people probably know that you were instrumental in the revelations about Act Blue, so we want to make sure you're acknowledged for that. But if you have people like Elvis Chan and then some of the other DOJ figures that I've been talking about and going to highlight more in this show, some of who are still protecting Hunter Biden, it keeps coming back to Hunter in a lot of ways. Can they not thwart any real investigation? Even if you open an investigation, important investigations right now, if you have people like this in place in the Bureau, they can sabotage said investigations, right?
Absolutely. They can do everything they can to impede the prosecution of their numerous co-conspirators. And there's quite a few of them. I mean, this is very deep, very, very, very deep corruption, because in order for this Act Blue conspiracy, money laundering conspiracy, and it's more than Act Blue, really, at this point. You have Democracy Engine, you have another one called the Action Network, you have WinRed, and there's others. And the problem with this is that there were already mechanisms put in place to prevent this type of money laundering conspiracy from going on. And, it's clearly been going on. And there are people in law enforcement who have been willfully blind, deliberately indifferent, and or benefiting themselves from it. And, so that's a huge issue. That's a huge problem. So what we have to do is we have to see for ourselves, we have to see that these bad actors that have infiltrated the levers of government are prosecuted. I mean, until I see people being perp walked out of the FBI and DOJ for their participation in this, I'm going to have a real hard time believing that anything real is coming from this.
And I had a conversation today with a source, and they suggested, look, if there's not perp walks, if there's not prosecutions, these bad actors that are embedded, and there are many, and it can feel overwhelming, there are many embedded in every aspect of our institutions, right? If this accountability doesn't take place, they're just biding their time, because they know 4 years passes extremely quickly, and they can be effective in, affecting the outcome of the next election. So this has to be done, and this is where we're going to put a lot of our focus here on the absolute truth. Now that we've let the Trump administration get their feet under them a little bit, we're expecting arrests, we're expecting prosecutions. Real quick though, Chris, there is an investigation into Act Blue. Again, you've played a pivotal role in this. How are you feeling about that?
Well, until we see arrests, and there really needs to be arrests, both at financial institutions, with financial regulators, and we need to see some prosecution at the Federal Elections Commission as well, because we know that Darrell Lindenbaum and one of Trump's other fireys at the FEC, they are criminally complicit in what has been going on there. And we have to have arrests. Ellen Weintraub, she comes from Perkins Coie. Perkins Coie, the attorneys at that firm, they need to be arrested because at the end of the day, RICO money laundering enterprises need attorneys. Mark Elias needs to be arrested. And all of the illicit funds that have been laundered into their bank accounts need to be seized.
So just for our audience to remind them, Ellen Weintraub is that lady that Trump dismissed from the Federal Elections Commission, who her tenure ran out in like 2007 or something. So she really shouldn't have even been there anymore. And she'd done all kinds of things that, was egregious. And so there was outrage over, I think she's suing, but she doesn't have a legal leg to stand on, though we know how the courts are as well. And that's something else we've talked about a little bit today. We've also talked about the fact that Trump has revoked the security clearances of Perkins Coie attorneys, but explain how they factor into this Act Blue.
So a lot of these PACs and committees and candidates, a lot of the players in the Act Blue smurfing, money laundering enterprise, all roads lead back to Perkins Coie. So you've got your Janet Prostakowicz, you've got your Josh Kaul from Wisconsin, you've got Mark Elias, who plays a central role in all of this stuff, and you have to have attorneys helping you, and you have to have bankers helping you, and we know that banks like Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, Amalgamated Bank, Citizens Bank, they had to have all disabled any and all fraud flags, any of the Bank Secrecy Act reporting, Patriot Act reporting, Know Your Customer reporting, anti-money laundering reporting, suspicious activity reports reporting. I mean, in order for them to be able to do this, it's such a level of sophistication that a law firm like Perkins Coie, they are absolutely smack dab in the center of this. And coincidentally, whenever you look at a smurfing participant organization or PAC, it leads directly to money being laundered right into Perkins Coie in legal fees.
And I mean, the list is so long on why you should investigate Perkins Coie. It's not even funny. They're also the notorious law firm tied to the Fusion GPS, Steele dossier, and the whole the genesis of the Russiagate hoax. So, we could go on and on why the Trump administration or the FBI should be looking into Perkins Coie. They actually did have a desk at the FBI. We need to find out if the FBI is actually, rid them of their desk now that their security clearances are gone. That's something else we'll have to follow up on. Chris Gleason, thank you so much for your great work. We've been meaning to catch up for a while. There was a lot to catch up on. We're going to have to make sure there's accountability, right? It will take us not backing down and keeping asking the questions as to what's going on, where are the arrests, what investigation, what can we see? And so I'm glad you're there sounding your voice off with us, Chris. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me on.
Are you looking for monthly income without the risk of stocks because you don't feel like maybe you're well versed enough in the stock market? Well, here's something you won't hear about on CNBC. There's a unique way to collect royalties directly from America's most productive oil fields. No exploring, drilling, or operational headaches required. You simply collect checks month after month. And the best part? You can get started with just $25 through any brokerage account. The Oxford Club's chief income strategist, Mark Lichtenfeld, breaks down what he believes is the #1 oil royalty play for 2025. Simply visit RobinsonOilBoom.com now for more information. That's RobinsonOilBoom.com. RobinsonOilBoom.com now for more information. That's RobinsonOilBoom.com. As we covered extensively on this show, the worst flooding in western North Carolina in a century happened last year, and much of the area, unfortunately, still looks like this. The area is slowly being restored, but as my next guest, Sean Hendricks, recently tweeted, quote, "This needs to be said. WNC is being forgotten." This is in North Carolina governor. This is on North Carolina governor. He called out Donald Trump. FEMA donations have all been stopped because everyone thinks Trump's going to fix it like they do everything, but nothing's happening. Businesses are closing and people are losing their homes because they can't pay rent. Now, that was just in the last couple of days. Now, we all rightly blame President Joe Biden for the failure to respond adequately to the crisis, as well as the state government. And he was president at the time of the catastrophe, and he clearly cared very little about the plight of the people of Western North Carolina. But then when Donald Trump was elected for a second time and took over, we were told help was on the way.
Pleased to announce that under our leadership, the federal government will be surging housing solutions to the state that go beyond mere temporary hotel stays that ended up being very short term. The government wouldn't do it any longer, which is ridiculous. We'll marshal all available resources and bring back potable water and make your water and infrastructure dramatically more reliable very quickly. Today, I'll also be signing an executive order slashing all red tape and bureaucratic barriers and permits to ensure the rapid reconstruction of the roads here in western North Carolina. We're going to go through a permitting process that's called no permitting, just get it done. That's the way they built them many years ago, I guarantee you that, right?
So promises have been made, but have they been kept? Join us now as Operation Shelter's Sean Hendricks, who's been so instrumental in bringing attention to Western North Carolina and also with on-the-ground response. Sean, you made those statements on X. Have you heard from anyone since calling people out this week?
Yeah, it was actually amazing. I made the statement and people got mad. I got a lot of DMs saying like, you're stupid. You know what you're talking about, But all I can, and like I've always said since the very beginning, all I can talk about is what I'm experiencing. And what I'm experiencing is secondhand from people in the field. And I'm telling you, for months, the calls went to next to nothing. We started rebuilding a house. And then last week, it's been ramping back up almost to like 3 or 4 months ago where everybody's out of money. They need rent, they need food, they need housing. Matt Van Swol posted that one of these FEMA units had not been occupied yet because of some hang up. And the biggest difference is when we complained in the previous administration, one, we were called misinformation, liars, influencers trying to get clicks, all this negative stuff. Well, I made that post and Matt made his post and Cameron Hamilton reached out to Operation Shelter that same day and was like, look, please keep posting. It lets us know what's going on and how can we help? He wasn't like he was mad, like, why are you talking trash about us? It was like, how can we help? It's literally what he said. How can we help? And Matt and him got on the phone and started working out solutions. And I've had people reach out from JD Vance's team and, just again, where's the holdups? Because they can't see everything on the ground. And I also had the North Carolina state government pass finally yesterday. It just turned out to be weird timing. It wasn't like they passed it because of me. They actually started passing some of this budgetary stuff. And I'm telling you, why is it taking so long? Like, you guys need to be working around the clock, right? This is something you work 9 to 5 and go home. Put in 15, 16 hours a day, get this stuff passed. I don't care what the hangups are, get it done. But they did get it done yesterday. And so finally some money can start flowing in. But what good does the money do if it comes in, I don't know if you saw, but Silverado's, the music venue that was also a huge disaster response area, just announced they're going out of business. That's jobs and reasons to go to that area that are gone. Oh, it's terrible. They just won't ever be back. It breaks my heart because I watched them give everything to respond to the hurricane. And as those jobs and as these people move out of the area, if the money comes in later, well, what good does that do? So we need a sense of urgency. We need a sense of urgency. We need updates. It just won't happen in the darkness. And so, and I don't want to be that guy, but if I got to be back harping every 2 days on stuff not getting done, I will, because that's what's most important. And even Matt and I both have said in the beginning, well, we got painted as, oh, you're just political activist. Well, no, we're activists for Western North Carolina. That's what we care about. And right now, Trump's in charge, FEMA's in charge, NC or Governor Stein is in charge, that's the captains of the ship. Sell this ship right, get us home is what we're asking.
Yeah, and I mean, I get upset when I see people say that, you know, about you, Sean, and Matt. And look, Matt was not in the political game before this, really. He wasn't, you know, he got involved because of what happened with Hurricane Helene.
Same here.
I'm glad to hear that you, yeah, and same with you. And, you know, from what I know of you, and I mean, I've gotten to talk to you both a lot more through all of this. You know, didn't really know Matt, even though he married an old friend. We'd been disconnected for a while, but what I have learned is you're real independent thinkers, right? Just kind of straight shooters. It's not really even politics, though you might have felt one side responded to you better. Both of you are very much just very independently minded. So I hate to see that. And it also was hard to watch that and know that Matt and Aaron had been swatted this weekend. We're glad they're all safe. That's a whole different issue going on. And it's scary. It's extremely scary. So we're glad that they're fine. I'm also encouraged to see that it doesn't cause you to back down on raising your voice. It didn't cause Matt to say, hey, I'm not going to talk about it anymore, because there's still obviously a need here. I'm glad that JD Vance, his team reached out. FEMA, so can you help us understand what's the breakdown? I understand when the federal government allocates the money, it still has to be distributed by the state, right? Is that where the breakdown's happening?
It is. It 100% is, and it has been since the beginning. And the Democrat leadership is going to blame the Republican majority. The Republican majority is going to blame the Democrat leadership because, unfortunately, political parties now, we're so far apart, there's just nothing that they can agree on, really. But most of America's in the middle. We just want to live our lives, work, and actually have the tax money we spend be used by politicians on us and not people outside the country, not on their charities, not on their little nonprofit NGOs they got going on. When we pay taxes, I'd rather not ask the government for anything, right? I'd rather just keep my money. But since they take our money, they signed up to help us. And so get over whatever your differences are and get this stuff signed and out there. It taking 6 months to get a funding bill is unacceptable. Like, we should fire everyone in government and just burn it to the ground. Like, if you guys can't get something like that done, what can you get done? And that goes for both sides of the fence. Like, in what I'm asking for with when I didn't really, I'm not really calling Trump out. He's not going to be down here fixing it. What I'm saying is, hey, maybe you guys can yell, get up on, because when you get up and say something, Trump, people listen, and it brings some light back on the situation. And I just worry that he set a plan in place, and now it's a quagmire in FEMA and the state now, and they need to be held accountable. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just like, hey guys, we're going to point you out if you don't get this stuff done.
Yeah, the bully pulpit is very powerful, and it's never more powerful than when Trump's in it, right? Because when he says something, it does. Mountains start to move. There's just no questioning that. Things happen because people get afraid. Okay, so you all there's conversation now with the administration. Is it that they're now putting pressure on North Carolina, the North Carolina government to distribute these funds? I know that it seems coincidentally they started voting on some of this. When will the money start to flow? I mean, is help now again on the way?
That's what I got to find out. So this has only been 24 hours. I thought we were kind of into rebuilding houses and we're just going to get in this recovery phase. But then I'm like, what do you mean you still don't have any help? What do you mean you don't have any rental assistance? What do you mean you're going to be homeless on Friday if I don't give you more money? I don't have more money to give. The donations have all but stopped, and so we cannot step in when the government says we got it and people believe that, they stop giving money to charities. Right? Because there's other, the fires in California happen. Now we got tornadoes in all over the US. The money stops flowing in. So when I have a bunch of people come back to me for round 2 of funds, well, they're not there because we kind of thought you guys got all this money from the government. You would be paying people's rent, right? And so it's just not happening. So what I got to do is find out now is, okay, you passed it, which I get. It just feels like terrible timing on my part to come out and throw a fit. And then like 6 hours later, they passed the bill I'm throwing a fit about. Or maybe it was good timing. But now we got to go in there and say, okay, let's get this money flowing because, just because they pass a bill, I mean, there's stories of hurricane relief funds still not paid out from like Hurricane Katrina. I hear I hear around. So I think now my focus is just going to be being that annoying guy on the internet that is holding them accountable to actually getting this money flowing into Western North Carolina.
Yeah, You know what? You're really good at that. I'm glad that your voice is reaching important ears. And you know what I will say I also really respect about you is that you talked about the fact that there's no money in the coffers at Operation Shelter, is that when you thought the money was coming, that the government was now addressing the situation, when you thought that, when you came on this show, you didn't say, okay, keep giving to us. You said, okay, let's now put pressure on the government to do the right thing, right? Because we do pay taxes. And I'll just be honest with you. You don't hear that from a lot of nonprofits, even in the, you know, the good times. And when you think the problem's fixed, you don't hear that. So you really saw that was fixed.
Yeah, I'm trying not to be a nonprofit, right? I'd like to spend every dollar we have, close shop because they don't need it anymore. And that's kind of thought where we're at. So we committed to building a house, which is going to take a good chunk of money. But I can't take this person who I'm building a house for, stop building the house to start paying rent and temporary housing again, because I was told that's covered. So we moved our funds into rebuilding. We hope we rebuild one house, and then by the time we're done with that, maybe we have a little bit to help with another rebuild. And I mean, that's it. You know how expensive houses are. Like it doesn't take long to run through hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so if we can rebuild a couple of houses, my goal is not to build 500 houses in Western North Carolina. It's just to do what we were given the money for, is to help some people, and that's what we were doing. And so we've had to basically hold back and say, well, we've started building this house, we have to finish that, and now all this need is coming back in, and it's like, oh wait, we're we're not in the rebuild phase. People are still needing just rent money at this point. And so that just makes it difficult. Now it's like, do I go back and start fundraising again and start begging for money and posting and then raise another couple $100,000, and then the government steps in, does what they need to do, and now I'm trying to find a place, which I'm sure it won't be a problem to spend it. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to take money out of people's pockets and then not need it in the future. I want to be a good steward of what's been entrusted to me.
Wow. I really appreciate that. And I know that's why people, you know, are so ready to work with you too, Sean. Look, keep us posted. We'll keep watching this. Before we go, I do want to address the business situation, because I was in Western North Carolina before it really, really started building up the way it has. And there has been such an influx of business in that area over the last 2 decades. It makes me so sad that a lot of these people are going to go out of business. How can people help to keep that from happening? How do we support the businesses?
Well, I mean, it would have been nice to start the cleanup 4 months ago. So now that we're in spring, we could actually have a tourist season, right? I mean, hindsight, the fact that it took till Trump get in office to actually clean this place up is what killed us, right? They signed our death warrant 4 or 5 months ago when they had no action. So why would you go to a place that's trashed for your vacation? Like, it's a lot to ask somebody to take their 1 or 2 weeks off they got a year to come to an area that is basically a disaster zone. A lot of people think it's unkind, right? They go, oh, I wouldn't want to go there. I wouldn't want to put burden on them. Which, let me tell you right now, nobody up there thinks it's a burden if you come up and visit us, right? We need the tourism to come back. A lot of, there are some businesses moving into the area, which is helpful, but it's the small businesses that lose at the end of the day. The subway seems like a big business, but it's owned by a local guy in a franchise who lost his house. So, the gas station, it says Shell on it, but that's somebody's small business, right? And so I think a lot of people think, oh, well, it says Shell on the side, they'll be fine. No, that's somebody who's a franchisee, and people not going through there buying gas and popcorn and ice and beer. That's hurting their small business. And when you're not up there fishing and tubing and rafting and doing all the stuff that people do up there, you're not buying all the stuff that convenience store sells. You're not stopping and getting Subway sandwiches. It's an ecosystem that requires people to be there, and it requires beautiful, pristine nature. That's what they have for sale. And right now it's devastation. So when your product is beautiful, pristine nature, and it's been replaced by devastation, you don't have a business.
But there's still a lot of great spots to go hiking. There's still tubing to be done.
100%.
There's still beautiful areas to visit. So if you are so inclined, especially if you're in driving distance and you could do a weekend trip, it'd still be a lovely trip. Go out and eat while you're there. Yeah,
that's such a good point.
I love to go there just for the food alone.
100%. Yeah. And that's such a good point. The news is only showing the most devastated areas, right?
Yeah.
Most of 90% of Western North Carolina is still gorgeous, right? We just have this heavily devastated area along this major river basin that was devastated. But you go up in the mountains, my buddy Justin's property, he got some major damage, but it is beautiful up there. And it's been recovered because it wasn't the total devastation that was down lower. So yeah, there's plenty of places to go visit. Plenty of places are open. Take a weekend trip, take a week trip, whatever you can do. Money has to come back in naturally. It's bigger than a nonprofit to fix it. It is definitely a government-sized problem, unfortunately, but it is going to take big money to get this back done.
It takes both. It takes government and it takes people just doing the little things like, taking a little trip and buying stuff from the businesses, stopping in what was devastated and the businesses that are open, and, buying a sandwich, something like that. Yep. Thank you, Sean. Good to see you. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule with the whatever that is behind you. I envy you. I think that's lovely. Thank you, Sean.
Roads. All right. Thank you. Bye.
I love it. Thanks. Bye. MyPillow is excited to announce that they're having the first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. Save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. You all know that's one of my favorite products. Also save 30% on their brand new My Crosses. They come in both men and women's. They're made right here in the good old US of A. Get the 2025 6-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. And of course, the best-selling standard MyPillow, the Icon, just $14.98. So to take advantage of the first ever mega sale, all you got to do is go to mypillow.com and use the promo code TRUTH, mypillow.com, promo code TRUTH, or call the toll-free number you see at the bottom of your screen, 800-944-5396. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Wow. That ship is still, because right now every single order ships absolutely free no matter how much you spend. And that's the absolute truth. It was actually good for Supreme Court Justice John Roberts to pop up out of nowhere yesterday and to declare to the American people that unelected judges do not accept any limits on their power. This is yet one more indicator that the deep state is going to run another color revolution against Donald Trump. In fact, it's already started. It was entirely predictable as well that the deep state would move against Elon Musk by fomenting fake protests at Tesla dealerships and also attack Musk influencers as well. I keep trying to tell you, it's a real war. If Trump doesn't arrest the ringleaders, it's all over. Say goodbye to our constitutional republic. Did Trump learn all of his lessons from 2020? Does President Trump know his enemies? Well, let's take the Pentagon, for example. The Department of Defense needs to be re-educated ASAP to identify all enemies, foreign and domestic. Secretary Pete Hegseth has said this February 7th at the Pentagon Town Hall. Listen.
Why do you get rid of something like DEI? Because from our perspective, it served a purpose of dividing the force as opposed to uniting the force.
Okay, sure, but DEI is far worse than a bad idea. DEI, CRT, open borders, weaponized public health agencies, climate change, and the like are all Marxist mass line narratives and are the symptomatic result of deliberate, focused, enemy political warfare operations, which originate from hostile foreign states and are executed domestically by traitors, useful idiots, and enemy operatives. Presently, our leaders cannot identify our enemies, nor their tactics, doctrines, or victory objectives. This is a completely unacceptable situation. In fact, our national security and political leaders are in a state of strategic incomprehension. America and all of Western civilization remain in the end stages of World War III. This is what World War looks like in the 21st century when your enemies employ the tactics of Maoist political warfare and unrestricted warfare. The only serious people in Washington, D.C. are the communist revolutionaries who know exactly what they're doing and are still busy overthrowing the Constitution. This is not hyperbole. And it's not just the judiciary. It's not just the Pentagon. Take, for example, the news we broke on our show yesterday about the Trump Department of Justice continuing to communicate behind the scenes with Hunter Biden's attorneys in his lawsuit against Patrick Byrne. In Hunter Biden's defamation lawsuit in California against Byrne, a DOJ official was caught communicating with Biden's legal team in violation of judge's orders. That DOJ official failed to appear this week. The official's name is Sam Bean. You see his LinkedIn here. He's been at the Department of Justice for some time now. What exactly had Bean and Hunter's attorneys been discussing behind Byrne's legal team's back? Well, they had been agreeing to something called interrogatories. This is a discovery issue. Interrogatories are written questions for Byrne's FBI contact to answer regarding evidence that Byrne had provided to the FBI about Hunter Biden. That is not only in violation of DOJ policy overall, but it's in direct violation, as I said, of a judge's order. Now, Bean, for whatever reason, didn't show up this week to the Zoom hearing in which he had filed a motion to appear himself. And thus, Judge Wilson ordered that Byrne's lawyers be included in all communications going forward between the DOJ and Hunter's lawyers. But the question is, why is the DOJ now under the Trump administration communicating via back channels to help out Hunter Biden? It's because the Trump team has yet to identify deep staters and take over the government. I don't want to leave you despondent, okay? America has a fighting chance. We do. But we need to heed Soviet spy Bella Dodd's warning from her testimony to the House Committee on Un-American Activity in 1953, in which she said, quote, "The American people have got to stop fooling around with just fighting communism in the abstract. They have got to know what the thing means, how subversion works, why they're against it, and how to fight it." What happened in 2020 was actually worse, I would say, than Pearl Harbor. We don't think our politicians understand that, though. If they do, they're not telling their constituents anyway. That year, America was attacked with massive enemy political warfare operations that included a color revolution of nationwide violence, the release by communist China of a bioengineered pathogen paid for by the U.S. government, and a subverted public health response lacking a basis in both science and logic, whose sole purpose was not public health, but a hostile mass line narrative to achieve revolutionary political warfare objectives that included the destruction of your personal liberty and the creation of massive mail-in ballot election system, which was a guaranteed mechanism for national scale fraud. This attack was coordinated by hostile foreign nuclear powers and facilitated by domestic traitors and useful idiots in numbers too large to count. The leadership of the Pentagon should have been advising President Trump that the nation was under attack and provided him with constitutional defense remedies. Instead, they also conspired against him. These hostile attacks resulted in the 2020 election being stolen, which means communist revolutionaries successfully overthrew our Constitution. The political leaders that we counted on to defend the Constitution failed to do so. In fact, they didn't even seem to notice it needed defending. These events were foreseeable, were foreseen, and the first Trump administration was warned of them in writing, yet failed to act to prevent it or to address the repercussions after the fact. It permitted the illegitimate Biden regime, definitely not in control of Joe Biden, to execute a tyranny against Americans under the color of law and prepare their battlefield environment in America so they could execute a final takedown of liberty here and around the world. The 2024 election was also on track to be stolen too, and the fact that it was not was despite of, not because of, our political leaders. Soon America will find out how the 2024 election steal was sorted. And today, thousands of those same conspirators are in leadership positions in the Pentagon. They're still hanging out in the Department of Justice and the other interagencies of the U.S. government. Right now, our enemies have already started to go kinetic with domestic terrorist attacks on Tesla, as well as the murder of InfoWars reporter Jamie White being a potential targeted assassination. This makes sense because thousands of conspirators are in leadership positions, as I said, in the government. We should expect these communist revolutionaries to expand their operations, and thus we will see even greater disruptions than they created in 2020, including coordinated attacks on critical infrastructure. Given the present strategic incomprehension of America's national security apparatus, it would be predictable that these upcoming operations will catch the current Trump administration off guard, just like they did during Trump 45. And then only a miracle will restore our liberty. So I ask again, does Donald Trump know his enemies? Well, we're about to find out.